Hello everyone, I'm Vengar and today I'm going to make a review of the Airsoft replica of the Mosin Nagant M44 Carbine made by WinGun, a Taiwanese company. First, I'd like to start by giving you a general overview of the market of Mosin Nagant replicas for Airsoft, and I'd like to start by giving you an idea of all the companies which make these replicas. So we have WinGun, King Arms, which is also known as Redfire in some markets. For example, in Italy, you can find replicas made both by King Arms and Redfire, and they are the same. They are the same product, but they come in different packages. Then we have Zeta Labs and Gletscher. It is important to note that all of these companies no longer make these replicas, at least from what I could see on the internet. And so they are sometimes difficult to get. For example, here in Italy, I've only managed to find 3 shops in all of the country which sell this replica. And it should also be noted that from the start these rifles were pricey, had pretty high prices. In some cases the shops have lowered the price in order to get rid of the old stocks of these rifles, and in other cases they have kept the same prices, if not even raised it, because they considered it a pretty rare replica, because as I said, they are no longer being made, and all that you can find are old stock. As I said, this rifle here, as you can see from the packaging, is made by WinGun, and I've managed to collect a few information on this company, and I'm going to share them with you. So WinGun is a company from Taiwan, and beyond that there are many information on it. I could only find an address of their main building, I think company building in Taiwan, and beyond that there is nothing else. They have no website, they have no email address, no phone number, and this makes pretty difficult to find spare parts or repair kits for their products, because they do not only make Mosin Nagant replicas, but they also make other products. And so you should keep that in mind, that if you break something in your product, you are probably going to have to buy a whole new replica in order to repair it, or just to have something that works. So now that we are done with the introduction and the general information on the other manufacturers, I'd like to start by giving you an overview of the packaging and what it is inside of the packaging. So this is how the rifle comes packaged. It is a box made of cardboard, so nothing special. There are a few information on the front, so we have the weight, the length, and other stuff. I'm going to talk about that in detail later. We have a few information about the importer and other stuff, but this is only for Italy. As I said, this was bought from an Italian shop. Around the box there is nothing special. And so now we're going to open the box. So this is how the rifle comes packaged. We have the rifle, we have 3 blocks of polystyrene, which is pretty low quality. As you can see, it is already all broken. And then we have a cardboard box, which contains the strap. This replica comes with an included strap. I'm going to talk about this later. Then we have an instruction leaflet, which is nothing special. You can pause the video if you want to read what is written here. These are only some general information regarding this replica and how to operate it, but really nothing interesting. And another thing that should be noted about this packaging, this box, is that the exploded view and the general view of the gun, so if you need to repair it, is printed here on the inside part of the box, so on the lid. and that is not really a very good thing, because some people might not even notice it, and they might get rid of the box, and so they no longer have access to the instructional material. And also, as you can see, it is very big, and it is located on a pretty big surface. So if you need to work on this rifle, you always need to have this very big box with you, so it's not really the best thing. And they also glued a piece of foam over a piece of the instruction, so I mean, it's not the best. So if you need to keep this for further information and further usage, you should probably take some good pictures of the information and keep it with you on your computer, or even print it on a piece of paper, so that you can always have it with you. So now I'm going to remove the replica from the package, from the box. As you can see, the box has nothing else in it. And this is the gun. So this is one side, and this is the other side of the gun. And another part of the packaging is this bubble wrap. You know, it is pretty famous, this type of packaging material, because it is going to protect the bayonet, which is made of metal, during transport. So that is the only other part of packaging of this rifle. And of course, included in the rifle, you also have the magazine, but I'm going to talk about it later when I'm going to talk about the gun. So the last thing I'm going to talk about before moving directly to the gun is the strap, which by itself is not a bad strap, because the material is canvas and it is very, very strong, and it reminds me a lot of the original material of Soviet and Russian slings and straps. So the material is really good. The leather, of course, is fake, and the color is wrong, because as you can see, it is pretty much like some sort of tan leather, so it's not the best color, but you can work on that. I have already started applying some sort of product to make it look darker, so it's not something that can't be fixed. The real problem is how they made the strap, because as you can see, it is pretty much a mess. You have this piece of leather here which keeps these two parts binded, but this is not how the real Mosin Nagant strap should look like, and I'm going to put a picture here so that you can understand how it should really be. And so I mean, it's not like you can't use it, you can use it, but it is pretty stupid how they made it. So if you have a possibility, if you have a chance, you could improve it by removing the leather and changing how the strap is made. I'm probably going to do that. And yeah, I mean, the strap itself is not bad, but it might need some work to make it even better. Alright, so now we're going to take a closer look to the gun. So I should start by giving you some general information regarding the characteristics of the gun. So it is 134 centimeters long, and it weighs 3.7 kilograms, which is pretty close to the original rifle, so it is a pretty good thing. The materials are pretty much two, so we have polymer, plastic for the stock, and the rest of the components of the gun are made of metal, but the type of metal varies from zinc and aluminum, so an alloy of these two metals, and then we have some parts made of steel, but most of the gun is made of aluminum, so you should keep that in mind. Well, most of the engineering effort went into the bolt and magazine system, so in the firing system, because they are very well made and very interesting, so we're going to talk about that in a moment. And the rest of the gun, well, I'm not saying that the rest of the gun is bad, because I have to say the quality is okay, but you can see that there are some things that are not really that great. It's the most interesting part of the gun is the bolt action in general, and the magazine. That part has been done very well. So first I like to start from the front of the gun, and since I talked about the materials and types of metal of this replica, I have here a magnet, and I'm going to show you what is steel and what is it's probably aluminium. So here nothing is steel. Here only the bayonet screw is made of steel, the rest is all aluminum. Here we have a pin, which is also steel, so you can see the magnet works only on these two parts. Then the bayonet is all made of aluminum. Under the bayonet we have these two retaining pieces of metal which are made of steel, but these rings are not made of steel, are aluminum, so this is steel and this is aluminum. Moving down we have the rear side, which is still aluminum, and we have nothing made of steel. The receiver is all made of aluminum, the bolt is all made of aluminum, and even the screw here is made of aluminum. This is all aluminum. And on the back of the gun we have buttstock, here this part here, which is also aluminum, but the screw here is steel. So as I said, most of the gun is made of aluminum, but it is pretty good quality aluminum, and it is also pretty thick, so I'm not seeing any of these parts breaking anytime soon if you don't throw them on concrete or something like that. So going back to the front of the gun, we have the typical airsoft red tip, then we have the front sight, then we have the bayonet, which is a pretty infamous part of the gun. It is all made of metal, as we have seen before, but this is not steel, this is aluminum, so yeah, it's not as strong as steel, but it is still pretty dangerous, as you can see. So you should always keep in mind that this part here should be removed in order to be safer, but I mean, it's up to you. Then under the rifle we have a false cleaning rod. It is all attached to the part of the barrel here, so you can't remove it and you can't even move it. It is completely welded to the front part here. Then we have these two steel retainers, as I've shown you, to keep these two rings which keep the stock, the fake wood stock, together, and they are pretty well made, so they are spring action. You can move them and you can remove the front, and you can remove these two rings with no problem. Then here we have the first part, the front part of the sling attachment system. So it is a simple hole which you can insert this strap into. Now moving on to the main part, the central part of the gun, we have the rear sight, which is adjustable, but it is pretty disappointing because it's not like with AKs or the original Mosin front sight, which can be lifted and somehow manipulated. If this is the maximum that you can lift, and the system itself is not the same, so there are no springs or any other type of metal inside, so it's not really the best, but yeah, it's not really that important. So you should keep that in mind, that if you want to put a scope, with the modern types of rails which are generally attached to the rear sight portion here. So you generally remove this part here, you use the same pin and you have a Picatinny rail here. You can't do that with this type of front sight. You need to find something else, so keep that in mind. Then here we move to the main part of the receiver, which is, as I said, it is aluminum, but it is really thick and really strong. Here we have the bolt. We're going to talk about the bolt later in great detail. We have the trigger here, which is pretty nice. It is a pretty nice trigger. Here we have, let's call it the magazine well, even though the rear rifle does not have a magazine, a removable magazine, but here we have one, since it is an Airsoft replica. I'm going to talk about the magazine when I'm going to talk about the bolt in detail. And on the back of the gun, we have nothing special. We have the other hole for the strap. So this is the back part of the strap attaching system. We have the back part of the stock, and if you want to take a look at the other side of the gun, this is it. There is nothing special here. All of the features which need to be analyzed are on this side of the gun. Alright, so now we are going to talk about how this gun works, and we're going to take a look at the bolt system and the magazine system. So the way the gun works is very similar to the way a real gun works, because this does not use a spring like a piston and the other types of spring action that you see generally with the Airsoft rifles, but this one uses CO2. So as you have already seen from the magazine, you need a CO2 cartridge inside here, and as I said, it imitates the way a real gun works, because you have two parts in order to shoot a BB. You have the propellant, which is the CO2 cartridge, and then you have the projectile, which is the BB. So, taking a look at the magazine, this is the back part, this is the front part. So as you can see here, we have the CO2 cartridge. Of course, this is depleted, so nothing to worry about, and it is just here to show you how it works. And then this is the part where you put the BBs in, and if I'm not mistaken, it can fit up to 16 BBs, 6mm BBs. And well, this pretty much works, as I said, as a standard rifle cartridge, in the sense that you have the CO2, which works as the propellant, which is the thing that makes the projectile move out of the gun, and this is the part where the BBs are located, so these are the projectiles. So let's say that you want to install a new cartridge, so you take the cartridge and you put it inside here. If you can see, there is the needle with the valve system to puncture the top part of the cartridge and make it work. So you insert it here, and then you take this key, which is a standard hexagonal key. I think they are called Allen wrenches, but I might be mistaken, I don't know. And so if you lose this part here, you can use a standard key, a standard wrench, so nothing to worry about. So they have put it here in the magazine so that if you are on the field, you have the tool with you, but if you lose it, you can always use something else. And then, as you can see here, we have a screw. So you use this key, you tighten it up so that the top part gets punctured and the system can work. So let's say now that the cartridge is inserted and it has been punctured, so the whole system is under pressure. Here we have the BBs. Here we are going to insert the BBs that are going to be shot out of the gun. And so how this magazine works is, well, you can see here that there is this type of valve, and there is a little pin here. So we are also going to talk about the bolt as well. and so the bolt inside has a firing pin. The firing pin is going to hit this other pin here, so a small amount of CO2, which is under pressure, gets released inside of this chamber, and the BB, which is going to be located in here, is going to be shot out of the magazine, inside of the barrel, then outside of the gun. So as you can see, it is pretty similar to how a standard rifle cartridge works. Of course, this is only in theory because the system is powered by CO2. So let's put the cartridge back in. And now we're going to take a look at the bolt. So the bolt, of course, is operated like this, as a standard bolt action rifle. When you want to shoot it, of course you press the trigger and the back part of the bolt fires. And well, before I'm going to remove the bolt, I'm going to give you some general information about the bolt. As I said, it is all made of aluminum, but the action is great. It really feels heavy, and I mean, it does not feel like a toy, but it feels really nice in your hands. So it is a good sensation. It is really well made, and of course here we have a safety. As you can see, this red hole here is where you should put the back part of the bolt, like in the real gun. But I mean, the system itself is not really that great, because I mean, now the gun is cocked and I could just rotate the back part of the bolt, and as you can see, the safety is on. So now let's fire it. So now the gun is uncocked, and if I want to put the bolt or the gun again on safe, I have to retract this part. As you can hear, it clicked, so now the gun is again loaded. So I'm going to put it back on safe, but in any case the gun is loaded. So even though it is on safe, you have loaded the gun. So if you want to unload it without firing, you should keep the bolt back, the back part of the bolt back, press the trigger and make it go in slowly, so that you don't fire the CO2 inside of the magazine. Lastly, I'm going to remove the bolt from the gun, and I'm going to show you how it looks. So to do that, you press the trigger and then you just let the bolt slide out by keeping the trigger pressed. So this is the bolt. It is made of three main parts: the front part, this part here, and then the rest of the bolt. This bolt could be disassembled even more, but there are some very big problems with that, because on the back here there is a simple screw, and I have already tried to unscrew it and disassemble it, but it is practically impossible. For some reason this screw won't move at all, and it is my opinion that there is probably some sort of glue or Loctite inside it, because it won't move in any way. I've even applied WD-40 in order to remove any types of rust or anything, but there is no way that this bolt is going to be disassembled without ruining it anymore. And I've also talked to another person who owns a replica like this by WinGun, and he encountered the same problem. So I mean, it is not only my gun, but it seems that all of the WinGun replicas have this problem. So if you know how to remove it without making any more damage, because I've already stripped part of the screw, so it's not really a good thing. If you know something, please let me know, because as I said in the beginning of the video, WinGun does not have any sort of contact system or anything, so I could not ask them. Well, anyway, going back to how the bolt itself works. As you can see here, we have some sort of firing pin, and when you move the back part of the bolt, the firing pin also moves. So it is pretty simple. When you cock the bolt back the gun, so the back part goes back. It is also kept back by the sear. So I don't know if you can see it, but inside here we have the sear, which is activated by the trigger. So you cock it back, then you put the handle back in the original position, but the sear is going to keep the back part of the bolt like this. And when you remove the sear, so when you press the trigger, the sear goes back inside of the receiver. The spring inside of the bolt does the rest of the work. So the firing pin goes forward, it hits the back pin inside of the magazine, which is also connected to a valve, and so it lets the CO2 get out and push the BB forward. So it is pretty simple. It works pretty much like the real version of the gun, so it is very interesting. And yeah, that's why it makes the whole WinGun replica pretty interesting and very nice to use. And this is how you assemble it back. So now it is ready to be inserted again inside of the gun. So you slide it back up to this point, and the sear is going to prevent it to go any further. So you press the trigger, and now the bolt goes back in place. As you can see, the back part of the bolt is a little backwards because the sear is keeping it there. You press the trigger, the sear goes down, and the back part of the bolt goes in, and the spring pushes the firing pin on, as I've shown you before, this part of the magazine. So this is all I had to say regarding the WinGun Mosin Nagant M44 Carbine Airsoft replica. Of course, there is a lot of work to be done in order to make it look better, because the worst part of it, of course, is the plastic stock. I mean, the plastic itself is pretty nice. It is strong and pretty thick, so I'm not seeing any of these parts breaking, but the color itself is not right for a Mosin Nagant. So I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to give you more updates on the works and things, modification that I'm going to make on this replica. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is whether you should buy it or not, because there is a lot of controversy regarding this replica. And well, the price, of course, is not very cheap. I managed to get it for a little more over 200 euros, and some people might say that that is crazy for a gun made of plastic, but as I showed you, the mechanics inside of the rifle itself are very solid, and compared to the King Arms version of the Mosin Nagant, which is made of real wood, but the mechanics, the mechanical part of the bolt are very, very simple, with a traditional piston and you know, the handle and stuff. It is very unrealistic, so none of the parts move, so it is not really the best, but it looks better. So I mean, in this case you have a gun that looks a little bit worse, but it can be improved, and that it has a very functioning bolt system. So it is up to you. And well, if you are a real big fan of the Mosin Nagant rifle, and you have a way to get, and you have a possibility to get this gun for 200 euros or less, I would say buy it, because it is a really nice gun. But if you're not a big fan of the Mosin rifle, and you also find it for like 250 and even 280 euros, I pass the occasion, because it is not a very good deal. And if you have other preferences, if you like other types of rifle, maybe you should look at something else. So thank you for watching, and if you have other questions, comments, or maybe information regarding this rifle, as I said, there isn't a lot of information on this platform on the internet, please let me know. Thank you for watching.